This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
Good morning. I'm Bob Joseph. We are on the air for another week. WNBF 607-772-1290 is the number. If you wish to participate on Binghamton Now, we will talk with as many people as seems appropriate. Morning, your caller number one. You are on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Dave from Vestal, and good morning, and happy Veterans Day to you, sir. I trust your weekend was grand.
Nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, Bob, but you always say that, and boy, you must be the happiest guy in the world because you always have a great weekend. But hey, I'd like to start out thanking, Bob, all the veterans out there for their service. And also let the homeless veterans know that we pray for their well-being. Now, there's quite a few of them out there, Bob, and it's sad. Homelessness in general is sad, but to know we have so many veterans out there, Bob, it doesn't sit right with me, and we need to do a better job of reaching out and helping them. Secondly, Bob, I don't know, but this really burns me. When I read over the weekend about that FEMA supervisor telling the workers to skip over, they had that hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Milton down in Florida. Really, tell them to skip over people that had Trump signs in their lawn. How despicable is that, Bob? That's terrible. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in. You need help. You should feel confident you're going to get it. She was fired, and I think, Bob, she ought to lose her membership card to the human race because that's pretty bad. That really burns me. Plus, too, Bob, I want to tell you one last thing. I thought of you over the weekend. The opinion column in yesterday's paper. Mike Kelly, pretty long article. There was one little part in there where he said that the Democrats ignored all too obvious fact of political life, that American voters still hold on to many conservative values. The nation is not really red or blue. America is filled with purple voters who often hold values on opposite ends of the scale. There. I thought of you and your purple hats, Bob.
There you go. I'm going to start selling purple hats that are made in Endicott at the former IBM site. And then we don't have to worry about batteries. We don't have to worry about solar stuff. We just sell American-made purple hats. $19.99. No, $12.90 per hat, made by American workers for Americans.
Kelly would be your first customer. You know what, Bob? And you know what? No lettering, just the color purple.
That's right. American no flag. Lettering. We don't need words to illustrate what the purple hat means. The purple hat means American quality and patriotism.
Right, Bob. So if it's just purple with the American flag on the front, no lettering, that says it all. That you don't need anything else. That's perfect. Right?
Beautiful in its simplicity. And for $12.90 per cap, you really can't go wrong.
Certainly can't. Okay, Bob, I feel better. I got stuff off my chest.
All right.
You enjoy the day. Okay?
We're off to a very good start here at WNBF, the station that serves the nation. I'm not going to put that on the purple cap. It would fit. The station that serves the nation. Well, maybe we would have a special edition. But the Purple Hat 1.0, the one that everybody will want, will have to prepare probably to produce more than 300 million purple caps will be the non-lettered version. And then if you want to show support for your favorite radio station, we'll say WNBF on the back, and on the front it says the station that serves the nation. Coming up with ideas really early in the week. I'm rather impressed, if I do say so myself. What else is going on? Wildfires out of control in some sections of New York and New Jersey. Deadly wildfire. Deadly. And that doesn't happen very often in the northeastern United States, but it's been so dry for an extended period of time now. There is a big wildfire risk. There's been a lot of brush fires in the Binghamton area, actually, over the last couple of weeks. Nothing that really spread too far out of control, but they certainly had the potential to be serious. So be careful. Don't do anything that could cause a dangerous wildfire, because it's risky. It's not at the same level as parts of California, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. So if you're one of those people who likes to burn stuff, I would discourage that right now. No outdoor burning. I think if you engage in outdoor burning and it winds up causing an out-of-control fire, even if that was not your intent, I think you could probably face criminal charges. So I would say, first of all, I don't support people burning outdoors anyway, but call me old-fashioned. Air quality, by the way, right now in the Binghamton area, they say is good. Air quality index is 33. There had been some sections of upstate New York, Hudson Valley, and toward Albany, in that eastern third of New York State, some areas were getting some of that smoke from the wildfire down near the New York-New Jersey border, but apparently the air has cleared this morning, so that's good news. Forecast is quite nice today. Partly sunny, high 59. Increasing clouds tonight with a chance of showers, low 38. Tomorrow, it'll start cloudy with a slight chance of rain and snow showers in the morning, and then it'll gradually clear for the afternoon. Tomorrow's high 45, and Wednesday sunny, high 48. Right now, 53 in downtown Binghamton. That's 12 Celsius. WNBF.com is the place to go if you want to see some local reporting, as many people do. For example, the convenience store that is planned on the west side at a location that is familiar to many, the site of the Binghamton Fluorescence Company. It was there for many years on Main Street, and then last year Andy Schumann retired, so the place has been vacant for a little over a year. The store closed May of last year, so place is now under contract, and there's a person, Tony Singh, wants to get city approval to operate a gas station and convenience store at the site of the now closed business on Main Street. So the store would operate 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to midnight, Planning Commission received the overview of the gas station and convenience store a few days ago. And a public hearing is set on the site plan for December 3rd. Doing the requisite research on the site, we discovered there was an Esso gasoline station. Remember when Esso was all the rage? I think their mascot was Tony the Tiger. So Tony the Tiger sort of was doing double duty. He was selling gasoline and nutritious breakfast cereals. So Esso had a station there from about 1942 through 1977. And actually, one section inside the former Binghamton fluorescent store section you would not have seen if you were just shopping in the store, but the office area, they had, was actually some section of the old Esso service station that's still there. Interestingly, I found it interesting because I had no. So we did the story last year about Binghamton Fluorescent winding down operations. I didn't realize there had ever been a service station there. It's 9:21 WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bob, hi. It's Gary, West Side. I'd like to talk about veterans, if I may. If my memory is correct, Binghamton was the first city to house all of their homeless veterans. Do you remember that?
No.
I believe it was.
The city?
I may be incorrect.
The city of Binghamton houses all of its homeless veterans.
Was the first city in the United States
to house all of its homeless veterans.
Of it, yes.
Not some, but all.
That's the way I understood it.
All right. I know Binghamton has a project, at least one project I can think of on Pine Street that was a project designed to house homeless veterans. I don't recall that the city ever was hailed as housing all of its homeless veterans, but if that's true,
this was years ago.
Really?
At least 10 years ago. Yeah, at least 10 years ago. I may be incorrect about that.
Yeah, no, I would like to know, because I'm sure we have some former mayors listening who would be able to corroborate that, but I don't recall. It's possible.
It might have been with Mayor Ryan.
Could have been.
It might have been.
Well, he might know.
So also, if you're a veteran and you need help, see, there's a lot of help that Broome County gives to veterans, but the unfortunate thing is there are some veterans that don't know that there's this help out there. And there's a gentleman that helps with that, and I always forget his last name. Bob, you can help me out here, but his first name is Brian Votek, or are you familiar with who I'm speaking with? He's on the 4th floor in the Broome County building
office,
downtown. In downtown, and he will help you with things that he can help you with. And there are a lot of things that they can help you with. You just have to ask for help.
Yeah, if you want, first place to look, if you want to learn more,
that center
is on the county website. I'm just punching up, and there's Brian's picture. He's the director. According to this,
and
the
he's
office.
Awesome. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, I've spoken to him, I believe, in the past, not recently. But according to the website, the office is on the 5th floor. And it says, support our Broome County veterans. Your contribution supports over 13,000 veterans and their families. So there's a button where you can click if you want to support veterans in Broome County.
All right. And, there's a lot. When we think of veterans, right, we think about, they sacrificed their lives, or they sacrificed their time to, support our country, to defend our country, and that is true. But there's also, there's two types of veterans. There's the veteran who, well, in the Navy, we used to call them lifer dogs. They are in for life. That's going to be their job. That's what they decided to do, and they're going to be in for life. Then there's the other veterans who sign up, and once their time is up, they want to get out. They're just done. They did their 2, 3, 4 years, and they just want to get out. They just have had enough of the veteran lifestyle, which can be very difficult. Bob, one of the things that I did not like when I was in the military was that there would be somebody who, only because they've been in the military longer than you, will give you orders, and you have to obey their orders. And I've seen this personally where, just imagine this, you get some guy, he's in high school, he's kind of like a doofus, and he gets picked on in high school. Now all of a sudden he joins the military, and he realizes, holy crap, I got this power over guys below me. And you know what? Sometimes they take advantage of that, and they take advantage of it in the wrong way. And I've seen where people have been picked on just because this guy who, for whatever reason, wants to be like a bully and show his power and stuff. And that's the thing that I did not like about veteran service. I'm sure there's veterans out there that know what I'm talking about. And maybe not every veteran has experienced that, but there's a lot to veterans' life. It's there's one thing that I was always told too, and I don't think this is correct. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, they always said that you're guilty before proven innocent, but I still think that you're innocent. I'm not exactly sure about that one either, but I think you're still innocent about that. But that was something that was always passed around, that you're guilty until proven innocent.
Maybe that was just
I don't
the way
think that's
people.
Correct, but
that could be the way people felt about the system when in fact the system, you still needed to, if you were accused of something, I really would think that even in the military, being accused of something, some real proof has to be presented before you're adjudicated or considered to be actually guilty of something. To me, it would not make much sense that we have certain basic values as private citizens, and then in a military setting, those values or rights are not afforded to the people who are serving in the military. I mean, I will say I know virtually nothing about military justice, so that much I can say that I really know little about military justice. But I would think that we're going, as a nation, always going to give our military people, our men and women who are serving the country, the presumption of innocence.
Yes, I believe that's the way it is. Mostly military justice comes from within. Like if you're on a ship and you do something where you get busted for, as they call it, you'd go in front of the captain. It's called captain's mask, and then they will decide what your punishment's going to be. Usually they'll bust you down or rape and fine you money and confine you to the ship, stuff like that. That's the one thing. I knew a guy who they didn't like, right? So, and I'm telling you, when they don't like you, they really do pull a power trip on you.
That's true.
And
that's true of any organization.
Yes, it is.
I mean, I know people who worked at IBM who, by my impression, outwardly, I thought they were okay, but I've heard in some cases, not anybody I personally know, but I've heard of cases where, for whatever reason, somebody was not generally liked within the organization, and he or she was treated less fairly than the rest. I think, unfortunately, it's human nature. I don't I don't think it happens all the time, but I'm sure it happens occasionally in most organizations.
Yeah, you're right. It is human.
I mean, you would think that would only happen in places like schools. You would think when, people turn 16 or 18 that they would snap out of that behavior, but it's not always true.
Yep. So veterans can have the free meal today. So if you're going to a restaurant, be prepared to wait because a lot of veterans take care of that. So, and Bob, what about? Do we know why the Democrats lost this past election? Was it because of the economy?
Well, I'll give you the simplest. I will give you probably the simplest answer because it's very complicated. But since you asked,
it's very complicated.
Yeah,
yes.
and there are plenty of reasons, but I'll say the simplest reason is because the Democrats didn't run the best possible candidate.
And that is true, and they don't have the best policies. They're kind of really hurting a little bit of America.
I mean,
the whole defund the police thing, I think, was a big thing that wasn't out in the forefront. But look, we don't want criminals running around. We don't want them.
And even Democrats don't. Even Democrats don't. Most Democrats don't want criminals running around.
Then why do they have the policy?
Most Democrats, in my opinion,
bail.
In my opinion, most Democrats didn't support defund the police. Got lots of media attention from the so-called liberal media. The so-called liberal media and conservative media gave lots of attention to defund the police. I'm not convinced the majority of Democrats, or even, dare I say, the majority of so-called liberals or progressives actually supported this concept of defund the police. Some people were very outspoken a few years ago about reallocating police resources and perhaps reassessing where certain money was spent and maybe applying additional resources for people with mental health problems or other issues. But because the whole argument was framed inelegantly, sounds like a word Andrew Cuomo would use when he screwed up and said something he shouldn't have. It was framed inelegantly as defund the police. And that was in large part put forward by the media because that was a good shorthand to discuss a really complex issue. Because, there might have been some really radical elements in the country that truly wanted police departments defunded, but I'm not convinced the majority of Democrats or liberals wanted police agencies truly defunded.
I agree. But what about cashless bail? I mean, that's a policy that nosedived, that just failed.
Well, I think some people who supported it did so with the thought that the way the bail system was being applied was unfair to the people who were poor. Rich people, how often, Gary, do rich people spend the night in jail?
Yeah, you're not going to get an argument about that. What will argue is that that wasn't the solution. Yes,
No, I know it's not the solution, and Democrats, whether they're in Albany or elsewhere around the country, have discovered that is not the solution, but there is an element of unfairness in the system. So if two people get arrested for a virtually identical charge somewhere in Broome County on a Saturday night, one person may be back out on the street really, really fast, and another person may have to spend the weekend in jail because she wasn't able to raise the bail. Whereas the guy who had resources, either a lot of money himself or friends with a lot of money, was processed quickly and issued an appearance ticket to show up in court in a few days.
Yeah, that's not fair.
No, it's not fair. And I don't know what the solution is. I have no idea. I'm just saying our system of justice works really well for people who have money. And sometimes it works really well for people who are destitute. But as they often have said, you get the best, say, for when it comes to representing yourself. If you have to hire a defense attorney, you can get the best defense attorney you can afford, the best defense attorney money can buy. Or if you're destitute, an attorney will be appointed for you.
Yeah.
Then your quality of defense is not going to be as good if you were a millionaire or a billionaire. You know, Elon Musk will always have access to the best legal representation. Joe Smith, who gets arrested for something similar at the roundabout, is going to wind up being assigned a public defender who is overworked and underpaid.
Yeah, and if Joe Smith keeps committing that same crime on the roundabout, something should be done about that.
Absolutely. And same with Elon Musk. If Elon Musk or anyone else, if they're a repeat offender, some steps need to be taken, because our communities can't take this revolving door type thing where people keep reoffending.
Right. Correct.
So I don't know what the solution is, and we're certainly not going to find it on a radio program. Appreciate your call.
Okay.
Have a great day. It's 9:36 WNBF. We stand for fairness and justice for all. 9:37. That's right. It is 23 before 10 o'clock. More calls are coming up on Binghamton Now. Let's go back to the phones. Jerry from Binghamton's North Side. Good morning.
Good morning, Bob. Thanks for a minute or two. I'd like to thank all the veterans for their service, because they served, I didn't have to. I'd like to try to answer Gary's question. Gary from the West Side. He asked, how did the Democrats lose? Well, it's 1968 all over again. They presented a candidate that was the vice president of a weak or unpopular president incumbent that was not running, and they refused to hold the primary in a fair, balanced way. My understanding of the primary system is so that people get to vote for the candidate that represents what they'd like to see the direction of the country. And they did not have primary ballots, so therefore when they held the national convention, it was a big party. Instead of building a party platform, they just celebrated themselves. And there was no strong platform for the candidate to stand on. They presented a weak candidate with no platform. And the Republicans now are saying the Democrats lost because they weren't listening to the people. And that's exactly the case. In 1968, when the Democrats lost, didn't know how they lost, they held a commission. It was called the McGovern-Fraser Commission to determine how they lost. And they determined to expand on the primary system. As a result, the next election cycle, they had a greater percentage of minorities or, let's say, unheard citizens being heard from when they built up the platform. If during this primary season, I was pretty outraged that I could not vote for my candidate because I felt my voice was denied. And that's the result of this last election, is our voices were denied.
I think the biggest problem was Joe Biden decided last year that he somehow deserved a second term. If Biden, say, a little over a year ago, had announced he would be satisfied serving just 4 years as president, then there could have been a really good competitive primary process for Democrats. And I think, although there's no way to know for sure.
Well, prior to that election, I was telling my friends that we're only biding time. We got Mr. Trump out of the White House, but we're only biding time. And the pun was intended.
Right. Well, I was about to say if there had been a primary process for Democrats, if Mr. Biden had done the right thing and said, all right, I'm a transitional president. We'll see what the nation wants in 2024. So I will ultimately support the nominee of the party. Pretty sure that Democrats across the country would not have chosen Kamala Harris. Not sure who they would have chosen. Could have been Josh Shapiro. Could have been Gavin Newsom. Who knows? But
it could have been whatever it was. They'd have delegates at the convention to build a platform.
Yeah. Well, it's so. If
there was not a single delegate,
if Democrats truly are steamed about how this went, and I've heard some who seem to be really disappointed or disgusted or worse about what happened, then they should send an email to Joe Biden and say thanks a lot, bud.
No, I think they should send it to the DNC.
Well, both.
Because they do full support.
Well, but the problem is the DNC, nobody really could have forced Joe Biden out. Thankfully for the nation and for the world, we got to see the stellar condition of Joe Biden in that late June debate on CNN. Otherwise, they would have run probably the most bizarre reelection campaign. I don't know who set that up. Obviously it was CNN's idea, apparently, to do an early debate, and some conspiracy theorists have their own ideas. Anyway, the Democrats should have worked to set up a debate last February, so they could have had a good primary process and find an actual candidate who stood a chance against Trump. But they didn't, and so now they have 3 years to figure it out, come up with a good candidate, and a message that resonates with the majority of American voters. That's what you need. It's 9:44 WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Bob. This is Larry from Kirkwood.
Welcome.
Well, first off, let me just thank Gary for his service in the military. I know I disagree with him politically, but thank you for your service, Gary. And I'd love to give a shout out to my brother Rick, my sister Teresa, and remembering my dear departed brother Marty, who all served in the Air Force. And thank you for your service, my family. Love you all. And congratulations to all the veterans who served in the military, and thank you for your service too. How about you, Bob? Did you serve in the military?
No, unfortunately, I did not.
Yeah, me neither. Unfortunately, for other reasons, I couldn't, of course, because I'm disabled. But yeah, the world would be a lot different place if we didn't have our good veterans defending our freedoms all over the world, So, okay, that's all I wanted to say, Bob. Bless you, man.
All right, thanks. Appreciate your call. 9:45 at WNBF. Oh, look who the squirrel dragged in. Hi.
Hi.
It's Mr. History.
That's right. I'm history in Broome, Tioga, and all the surrounding southern tier.
The tri-state area.
Yes. I'm void where prohibited by law.
Some restrictions may apply.
That's right.
But they always do.
As I've gotten older, many restrictions now apply.
Well,
you can't eat that. Can't do this.
Shouldn't have been doing it to begin with.
Make sure you take a nap.
See, I I need a nap every day, but I never have time
Me
to do
too.
it. It's like,
Me too.
I know people.
My wife keeps saying, I have to take a nap. And, of course, my often retort, which it doesn't come out of my mouth, is from what? But then I also know that I'm afraid of my wife and my daughters because I just, out of my own personal safety,
yeah.
because I have to live there.
Well,
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah. Which everyone should
things.
do. Yes.
2 rules of thumb.
Yeah.
That's why you have 2 thumbs. On the left thumb, the rule of thumb is watch out what you do
Yes.
around the aforementioned people, and watch out what you say,
Exactly.
because it can and will be held against you.
Not in a court of law, though.
No, worse.
No.
No, a court of law has to operate by
This is
certain legalistic principles.
This isn't the court of home.
Yeah.
And that has a different set of rules altogether. You know, there's no little ding ding sound there.
Oh, no.
No. You don't know when the ding ding's going to come, but
It comes inevitably.
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's
And
approach with caution.
yes. And therefore, I was going to do the old vaudeville joke. I've been happily married for 7 years, but I've been married for 32 or something. Bum. But I won't do that because I have been happily married for 32 years. There you go.
There you go.
See?
Well.
On this fine Veterans Day.
All right.
Yeah.
By the way, the fact that Jerry Smith is here suggests that between 10 and 11 we'll be fielding calls for the historian.
Yes.
America's favorite historian,
Yes.
AFH.
I'm taking over for everyone. Wow. No wonder my shoulders and back hurt.
All right. Stay tuned, America. By the way, we still have the opportunity to take a couple more calls before the top of the hour. So if you have general calls, non-history related calls, perhaps you have concerns about the election results. If you have a concern, certainly call us. We'll help get you through it.
We'll hold your hand.
Trained radio professionals are standing by.
That's right.
607-772-1290. The Happy Binghamton Now program from Happy Radio, WNBF. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grease man.
You remember him?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dougie. Sweet Dougie.
Yeah. Let's hear some rock and roll. It's Saturday night.
For the guy, and again, who am I to judge, right? But, for a guy who clearly had a lot of radio talent, he certainly managed to get fired a lot.
Yes. And from fairly major markets, too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was here, but he went on to what? Washington, D.C. area? Yeah.
And
Yep. Someplace else, too.
a lot of places. Oh, Jacksonville. He was at the Big Ape.
Oh, okay.
WAPE, the Big Ape.
Yep. But you had people like him. You had Wolfman Jack. I can't remember what station he was on, but he did a lot of TV shows.
He got really popular, I think, when he was on a Mexican station. It was a border blaster just over the border, from California. And I think because it was a Mexican station, I think the station could have been XNBF or whatever. It had to begin with X because that's what the call letter
for Mexico
format, was for Mexico. So we'll just say Wolfman Jack was on XNBF and who knows where Mexico, probably Binghamton, Mexico. So he's on a station that I think was something like 500,000 watts. I mean, it was really powerful.
So people could hear him across the border.
Yeah, whereas the most power.
He had a long career.
Yeah, and something wrong with his voice, but he didn't let that stand in his way.
I think his last name was Smith, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Was it
Robert Smith?
Robert Smith, something, yeah.
Let's take a call.
Okay.
From a lucky listener. Congratulations. Your caller number. What caller is 5? Hi, you're caller number 5. Congratulations. You're on WNBF. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Tom from Endicott.
Hey, Tom. What's going on there in the Village of Opportunity?
Well, I listen to your show as I do my morning walk, so I just want to thank you first for providing my entertainment. Sometimes I I listen sometimes. I turn the volume down, but I always stay on the channel.
Oh, thank you. So where do you usually walk? Do you have a varied route, or do you usually go? When I used to walk around Endicott, I used to go on that the Chugnut Trail behind the high school.
Well, when I'm going to church, I walk to church and back. Right now, I'm walking around to elementary school over in Taft Ave. There, that's another one that I walk around.
So, what church? St. Joe's?
No, Holy Family.
Oh, okay. Oh, in Endwell.
I go over there. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, by the way, I just drove by St. Joe's on Hayes Avenue yesterday afternoon, and I see they have some kind of a project going on. Looks like they're putting in a new entrance on the east side of the church on Hayes Avenue. So
the reason I called it is I just want to recognize local accomplishment. One of my friends has two daughters who were both homeschooled and played the violin. I don't know if you heard about this or not, but the youngest one is her name is Sophie Werner, and she just won the Juilliard violin competition at Juilliard, which is
really
from Appalachian. You should have her on the show.
Yeah, I should. Yeah,
because that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I for some reason was unaware of that, but man, that's remarkable.
I mean, I'm a pretend musician. I played a bunch of community bands and things. And by the way, I don't know if you mentioned there, and I think there was a commercial running tonight at the mall. There's a tribute concert that the Southern Tier concert band is doing, which is partially dedicated to veterans at 6:30 tonight. I don't know if you knew about that.
we had the director on I think a week and a half ago. So he came in and gave a little preview, and they're amazing. I've only heard them perform once, but they do excellent work.
But anyway, just going back to the story for a minute. So there she is. They streamed her performance at Lincoln Center, playing a concerto with no music for over a half hour of very complicated parts. With the whole Juilliard orchestra behind her, accompanying her. You can imagine the pressure in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list now on the Juilliard website, and there's her name. And, Sophia Warner, class of 2025.
What's absolutely unbelievable is the older sister also was homeschooled and also took up the violin. And she's at the Yale School of Music right now. So the fact that both of them took up the same instrument,
gosh,
to compete with each other is really remarkable.
Huh. That's incredible. Well, I appreciate your mentioning that. I guess I should write myself a mental note here so I don't forget. Sophia Warner.
In fact, if you really want to have fun, well, I was going to suggest it so you don't be partial to either's accomplishment. Maybe
have both of them.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder if their parents would allow both of them to be on the same show. I bet they would. Yeah.
But my good friend may hopefully will still be my good friend after this call. But I'm only trying to help him out. I know you got to get on to Jerry Smith and everything.
Yeah.
But what I was going to mention is, they give her a special violin. You just don't play your own violin when you get at that level.
Wow.
They loan you a violin.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's something I rarely talk about because it's certainly nothing I'm very proud of, but the first musical instrument that I tried to play was a violin in third grade. And trust me, I mean, that was all they offered in the third grade. So I learned a little bit about music, but I also learned that a violin can sound really good in the hands of someone who has some skill, and it can also sound not quite so good for somebody of my talent. So I switched over to trumpet in the fourth grade, so that worked better.
Hey, my last quick story there is, so my daughter wanted to play the violin in third grade, and I wouldn't let her because I wanted her to play the clarinet saxophone like I did. And my wife constantly brought that up, so my daughter just told me she didn't think she was going to make the Juilliard School of Music. It's okay. I don't have to feel guilty anymore.
Well, you saved a few bucks, too. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Right, who knows? Sure, you might get some musical talent on the program.
Yeah.
All right.
It's marvelous. And Yale School of Music is top-notch.
Yeah. All right, stay tuned. Coming up next hour, Stump the Historian here on WNBF. And here we go. Another big, bold, brash hour of history.
Yeah, that's right. History all the time.
We keep making more.
That's
Joined
right.
by Jerry Smith, where the History Watch never stops.
That's right. I have job security because history goes on forever.
607-772-1290. We begin our monthly presentation with Stephen from the South Side. Hi, you're on the air with Jerry Smith.
Hey, good morning. I'm honored to be the first of the hour. Good morning to the King of Khaki and the Professor of Pun, Jerry Smith. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I heard that name and the location, and I had a feeling I knew who it was going to be.
Yes, it's been a while.
Yes. And by the way, I'm wearing khaki pants today.
I knew it.
Just to make you feel happy.
Hey, I had a question. In light of the recent presidential election, if you had any books in the works about the presidency in Broome County, presidential visits, governors who became presidents, who sat in the pew.
No, but it would be a really... Yes, really good column, I think. And I'm still writing those, even though they're only on 2 times a month now instead of weekly. But yeah, in fact, we were just having that discussion in Owego because a lot of them came to Binghamton and then they'd go on to Owego. I mean, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, Ulysses S. Grant, William Howard Taft, Barack Obama.
I recall George W. Bush.
George W. Bush when he was running. That's right.
But he wasn't president yet.
No, but he was running.
It's March
Richard Nixon,
2020.
too.
Millhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I am not a crook, you know.
Well,
it was just food for thought.
Yeah, that's a good
Steve,
idea.
Yeah.
I would read that.
And I was also, I've been watching this documentary on Abraham Lincoln, and they touched on Daniel Dickinson.
Yes.
And I know you wrote about him.
Yes, yep. He was, at one point, Lincoln was considering him to be his running mate in the 1864 election. He picked Andrew Johnson instead, but then he made Dickinson the district attorney for what's now the Southern District of New York. So it's even though he was a Democrat. So it's interesting stories.
Yeah. There.
In fact, we're doing an exhibit. I'm doing an exhibit on a Lincoln portrait, Matthew Brady, and a bunch of interesting Civil War stuff opening up in spring at Tioga County Historical Society. So if people are interested in that, it's going to be a really neat exhibit. I get to play.
I'll have to plan a trip to that.
Yes, you do. I'll even wear khakis just in your honor.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Could you explain the local tie to Daniel Dickinson? I know he was born in Connecticut and he died in New York City.
Yeah, he was born in Connecticut, grew up in Chenango County. That's where he became an attorney, and then as a young man, he came down to this area, and he was elected he was elected the very first village president, which is what the term was before they changed it to mayor when it became a city. Then he was a local district attorney here. Then he was a state district attorney for New York State. And then when a senator left to go out west, Dickinson was appointed to complete his term in the U.S. Congress as a senator from New York, then elected to his own 6-year term during the time of the Compromise of 1850 and such, friends with Webster and Clay. His home was right on Front Street, right where the Broome County Health Department is now.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, well, that became a supermarket. It was where the Dwight block was. Yeah.
I remember the Dwight block.
Yeah, and most of the streets over there are named after members of his family.
Including Dickinson Street.
Yeah, Lydia Street, Dickinson Street.
I didn't know. I always wondered the deal with Lydia. And
Clinton was his son, named after DeWitt Clinton. And then McGatt Street was Mary Street originally, and then she got married, and they changed the name to McGatt Street. And Girard Avenue was Virginia Street. That was his other daughter, and they changed that to Girard when she got married.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, now I know.
See?
Oh, fascinating, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see the statue of Senator Dickinson all the time, but I really didn't know much about him.
No, he was our leading politician. I mean, he was very prominent and very well liked by apparently members of both parties, even though he was a fervent state rights Democrat. He gave 1,500 speeches in support of the Union during the Civil War. This sounds like my lesson plan I gave to you, Steve. That's
that was last decade or more. You know?
Yeah, well, thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah. You and Lindstrom are still bothering me, so.
Are you still teaching at SUNY Broome as well?
Continuing ed. I do walking tours and my local history class for continuing ed. And now, of course, I'm executive director at Tioga County. So I'm back to working 40 hours a week, just like all you other working people out there.
Oh, good heavens. Some retirement, yeah.
But some retirement. Yeah, exactly. You got it.
The community needs his service.
Yep.
That's right. Don't slow down, Jerry. We need you and we love you.
So right back at you, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks.
Take care. Have a good day.
Bye.
It's 10:15.
I have no idea who that was. Oh, no.
Of course you. Yeah. Of course you have. No idea.
Well, Southsiders, we still have to stick together.
They should. Yeah. Maybe someday they'll get a new store there where Weas used to be. I mean, Wise.
Yeah.
Wise.
Yeah.
On Conklin Avenue.
Oh, that one.
That one.
Yes.
I missed that one.
Benjamin Franklin branch was right over there. Yeah.
See you at the Wise.
Are they wise to be wise? I don't know. We'll come up with new slogans.
I always liked getting my Wise potato chips at Wise Market.
Yes.
I felt smart.
Well, you felt smart.
Yeah.
Look, we got another caller.
Hi, is the caller there? You're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bob from
Morning, Bob. What's up?
Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
Hey, I got a question for you. My girlfriend's buried in Calvary Cemetery, and I've been up there, I'll bet you 300-400 times to visit her.
Right.
And I've never known any history of that. Is that that's not an old cemetery like the ones you talk about up in Binghamton?
Well, it goes back a number of years, but it's not really like 100 years old, but the main part, the part starts on Harriel Drive, off the top of my head, that dates back to the 1930s, I think. And then, because my grandparents lived on the corner of Harriel and Reynolds Road, so my brother and I used to walk up that way all the time. And then, of course, it grew and grew, and then it expanded up the hill and then across the road to the new section, which I want to say opened up somewhere around late 70s or about 1980. Because a close acquaintance of mine who died from breast cancer in her early 30s is buried up in that section. And occasionally we still drive by and honor her. So, it's not as old as, say, St. Patrick's Cemetery over on Riverside Drive. That's the oldest Catholic cemetery in Broome County, I believe. Then you have another St. Patrick's Cemetery up in Whitney Point. Then there's, of course, the church-related ones. Some of the Slovak churches and such have cemeteries, but Calvary still, even if I think of 1930s as a new cemetery, they're starting to approach the 100-year mark.
Yeah, I was just curious. Is there any really famous people in there, like in the other ones? I've never really walked around there.
That's a really good question, and I'm sure there is, and somebody's going to help me out, but at the top of my head, I can't think of one, because I do my walking tours of Floral Park and Spring Forest, because there's lots of well-known names I've considered.
Including Daniel Dickinson at Spring Forest.
That's right. He's right at the crossroads.
How about Vestal Center Cemetery? I used to walk through there when I was a kid. I lived right down the road from there. And there was a guy that came across with George Washington. He escorted him. He was in the Army, whatever, back then.
Well, yeah, Vestal Center Cemetery goes way back. That's a very old cemetery.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's like the Riverside Cemetery behind what used to be Pat Mitchell's. There's Revolutionary War veterans. You've got the Merceros are buried in there, and they were aides de camp to George Washington, which is a nice way of saying they were the spies. And they did accompany him through the crossing of the Delaware and such, because they had come in from Staten Island. So there's some really neat, really old cemeteries out there with some good stories.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for the info.
Well, thank you for
You
calling.
should be on every week.
Yes,
I'll tell
every
Bob
day.
that. Okay.
Yeah, that can be arranged.
Okay.
Every day.
Yeah, still won't get
At
paid.
least Mondays and Fridays.
There we go.
There you go. It sounds like that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So when you just did a walk through Spring Forest last month, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. On the Sunday before Halloween.
Yeah. And I know someone who went on the walk and really enjoyed it.
Yep. It was also a very nice day. I give these walks, and it's always dress according to the weather. So that was a sunny day and pleasant temperatures. I've done it in rainstorms. Well, not storms, but rain showers. I've had snow showers coming down because it is October. But yeah, because Spring Forest, and we don't even touch probably a third of the cemetery with that. But we go up hills and down hills. Actually, I always warn them it's 3 hills. I walk them up and down. And so if somebody can't make it, they can judge what they want to do. But yeah, we get Daniel Dickinson. There's generals in there. There's a naval commodore buried in in the Spring Forest Cemetery. There's a former governor of Virginia buried in Spring Forest Cemetery. And why? Because his daughter lived up here. He came to visit her, and he died here.
Oh.
And they had to bury him, so he's buried there.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of really neat stories. A lot of the Whitneys, a lot of the famous business people. Isaac Perry, of course, is buried there. Of course, he also designed the gates that people drive through when they go into Spring Forest Cemetery. And Spring Forest now operates Floral Park Cemetery.
That's right.
So, in fact,
I think I know someone who is chairman of the board.
I just learned that they closed the little office at Floral Park and have moved all the records over to Spring Forest building there. Because I actually have a question about one of my relatives in there.
Remember 4.5 years ago, fairly early in the pandemic, and you got a call from me on a Saturday when
I did.
Exploring Spring Forest Cemetery, because back then the only things that really weren't closed to the public was cemeteries. So a friend and I think we explored almost all of Spring Forest Cemetery for over 3 hours. But
it would take that long.
Yeah. What I'm forgetting, though, do you recall whose grave I was looking for? Because
no. It's one you asked me about, and I wasn't familiar with where it was located.
And we eventually found it because
the caretaker,
or a volunteer,
Mr. Quinn, and it's John, I think, because he's been very helpful to me. He said, "Have you ever seen this one?" He took me right over and showed me something, and he's been very useful. And I was worried they were upset we were taking tours. They love it when we do that because it promotes the cemetery.
Well, it does.
Yeah. And they're still accepting burials there. You can still buy a plot. No, I don't recall. It was a name I wasn't that familiar with.
Yeah. And I'm trying, for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. And
I know.
I told my friend, I said, well, if there's one person on the planet who knows, it's Jerry.
But they would know over there because they're very good about helping people.
Yeah. But
as most of the offices are for cemeteries that I've come across.
Yeah.
There's a few we've had some issues with in the Scranton area, but that's because they've sort of abandoned them.
Well, and that's
a bad story all around in a lot of communities.
Well, and that's the thing. You look around here, and some cemeteries, it's just the way things. First, it's not inexpensive to properly maintain a cemetery.
Floral Park had that issue, and they couldn't pay for the caretakers to keep the lawns mowed and such, which is why they merged over with Spring Forest.
Oh, let's take another call.
Okay.
The calls, I'm amazed that people keep calling because, remember, there have been some months because we just got so talkative, we were confused.
We rambled.
Which
we could do.
Sure we can.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is to super serve our listeners. Like this caller. Good morning. You're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
My name's Mike. I live in the town of Union.
Hi.
And Joseph Barbera is buried in Calvary Cemetery.
Is he?
I think you
Okay.
remember him. Oh, yeah. And I got a little story to go with that.
Okay.
When I was a little kid, that was probably late 50s. We were playing at the Northside Park, which we called Greensfield at the time.
Right.
And we saw this huge procession come by. So, I mean, to us it was unbelievable because there must have been, I don't know how many cars and flower cars. So we snuck through the cemetery and we actually kind of got a glimpse of what they were doing. So that's my story for Calvary Cemetery.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Joe Barbera, okay. So if we see a lot of black limos followed by FBI agents.
Yeah, supposedly he was buried in a bronze gold line coffin.
I think he was. That part I had heard because he didn't live that many years after the Appalachian mob meeting. His son, Barbera Jr., I think, went out to Detroit or somewhere in that area.
Yeah, and his grave was marked with a statue. It was a cherub statue.
So is do you know if he's in the lower section? Well, he must be in the lower section.
And he was near where the old, they tore it down. What was a little cathedral there?
Oh, the little chapel. Well, the chapel in the middle is sort of there. They took down the overhead stone entrance you went through.
Right.
Which I regret because I thought that was very pretty.
Pretty close to that. I mean, I used to walk through there all the time.
Yeah, I know the section exactly because my wife's family. In fact, I've got some family buried in Calvary as well.
Yeah, so do I.
Yep.
So do I.
Indeed.
Okay, it was nice talking to you.
Thank you for the comment.
Oh, thank you. So here's a story from the Binghamton Press, back when they had a press in Binghamton.
1962? No.
1959.
59. That's right. It was 2 years after 1 year after the meeting.
Well, because the meeting was November 57.
Right,
he died in June of 59.
So he made it a year and a half.
So here is the Binghamton Press coverage of the funeral, Barbera burial, end of a TC, Triple Cities era, by Tom Cawley, of course.
Yes.
Yesterday was nearly as painful for newsmen as it was for the family of Joseph Barbera Sr. 20-year-old Angela, a lovely girl, was as grief-stricken as any young woman whose father has died. When Miss Barbera saw the newsmen at her father's funeral assembled in scores from many points of the compass, she understandably resented it. She expressed her resentment in positive terms, saying, "You call us murderers, but you are the murderers." Many a hard-bitten reporter listened to the girl's anguish with great compassion and wished he could do something. Many of them have daughters who are approaching Miss Barbera's age. So this was just part of the Binghamton Press coverage. And here's another part from the column that Tom Cawley wrote. It was a sorrowful ending to a troubled career, and the persons who suffer the most are the wife, the daughter, and the sons. There probably is no one in the valley who does not sympathize with Mrs. Barbera and Angela. It would be inhuman not to sympathize, but the word Appalachian has become synonymous with what every agency, from the Federal Department of Justice down to the village policeman, considers to be the rule of crime in nearly every walk of American life. So it's interesting where you do have compassion for the Joseph Barbera, the man, the person, the human being, but also putting into context what he ultimately became most known for. And also trying to show that you're not, even though you're part of the media, you're not ignoring the
human
pain,
side,
the pain of the family and the pain of the friends. And it's understandable that, of course, the media showed up for the funeral.
Yes.
You know, it was a big story, not just for the Binghamton area. It was a big story for America. It was, I'm sure it received coverage outside the United
event
States.
was the first time that J. Edgar Hoover had to acknowledge that organized crime existed.
Yeah.
Because he kept trying to deny that the mafia or whatever was an actual entity.
Yep. So,
forevermore changed.
Yeah. We'll be taking more calls. If you want to talk about history with Jerry Smith, you may do so right here on WNBF. We'll have more calls coming up on this Monday, November 11th, Veterans Day, WNBF.
Right.
Yeah. We have Jerry Smith.
All the time.
America's beloved historian.
That's right. Someone beloves me.
Of course. Let's take another call.
Okay.
From Binghamton's North Side. Dick, you're on the air with Jerry Smith.
I got you. This goes back about 80 years.
Okay.
When the Quonset huts were on Prospect Street.
Okay.
Oh, near where the highway is now?
Well, I'd have to say pretty close to across the street from Spring Forest Cemetery on Prospect. But I was curious if those Quonset huts were like for single families of veterans coming back wounded, or was it after the war?
There were about 2 areas of Quonset huts that were used for housing of veterans. One was in Binghamton, one was down in Endicott, too, for a while. And, excuse me, as I start to wheeze on the air, it was for the returning veterans. They actually bought Army surplus Quonset huts and used them. So there was some in that area. There was another section over, which is now MacArthur Park. In fact, the little road there is called Veteran Road.
That's right.
Yes. The
I didn't know that
by MacArthur Park.
I've always seen that street sign, but I didn't know the history.
Quonset hut housing in there for the returning veterans, because, as you said, sir, that they had wives, and then, of course, they had children. Now, none of these huts remained very long because, obviously, then the housing market exploded with the baby boom. The only one that I know to still exist is used by ServPro on the south side.
Oh, that's right. Over there, right near the Parkway on South Wash.
Yes. But you're right. There was some over in the first ward. There was some over on the south side. And then I've forgotten exactly where they were in the Endicott area. But
I never understood why they moved the one from Prospect Street to, like you say, MacArthur Park. We always thought because of all of the big pipes that were there on Prospect Street near the Quonset huts that they had trouble with the sewerage or something. And that's why they moved it.
No, I think they just they had separate ones in both locations. I think the first ward one was stopped first. I think they were considered temporary housing, almost like like after a hurricane or something when they put up temporary housing.
Right, exactly.
And the first ward one was sort of taken down first. It was removed first, and the ones in the MacArthur Park stayed a little bit longer.
Now, is the reservoir still there on Prospect Mountain?
There is one.
I thought right behind the Quonset huts there was a reservoir.
Yes, up on the top of the hill. Yeah, because there's spring water up there. In fact, Trout Creek still, at that point, had just been moved underground. Trout Creek, which sort of fueled that reservoir up there with basically a gravity-fed reservoir.
Exactly.
Trout Creek came off the mountain and actually meandered down through Spring Forest Cemetery along Winding Way and then emptied out into the Shenango River. After the 35 flood, they put that underground. But the reservoir, I think, was still up there. And, of course, the pump house still remains right at the end of where it is, because those pipes are literally large enough for a man to walk through.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I met the gentleman. He did it.
We crawled through them playing kids' games.
I'm sure you did, because those were quite extensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
well, anyway, thanks for the memory.
Well, thank you for the call.
Yeah, thanks. Interesting. It's 10:36 at News Radio WNBF. So looking through the big stack Binghamton Press newspapers that we have here.
Paper dust going
and
around.
Unfortunately, we just have the stack of papers from 1959. So the story about Joe Barbera's death was first carried in the Binghamton Press on June 18th, 1959. In the amount of coverage, I mean, it's just amazing to see the amount of coverage. Well, I guess you would expect it. So the front page. Yeah. Now, it was not a banner headline. Today, if it happened today, it would be a banner headline across the front page of our paper whenever they eventually got around to printing the story, days, weeks later. But it still would get lots, But this was competing with news like a huge tornado happened in Miami that injured 100 people. So that was the big dominant story. But still, on the left side of the Binghamton Press on a Thursday evening in June, Appalachian story ends for Barbera. And then the sub-headline under the file photo of very nattily attired Joseph Barbera, the sub-headline says, barbecue host death leaves mystery of Parley unsolved. Parley. The reasons behind the notorious underworld meeting at Appalachian, one of the largest gatherings of gangsters in the annals of crime in this country, will never be learned from the host, Joseph Barbera Sr. The 53, I didn't realize he was only 53
Yeah, he
when
wasn't
he died.
that old. Yeah.
The 53-year-old Barbera died at 7:35 last night at Wilson Memorial Hospital, where he had been under treatment for 19 days for a heart condition. And
because he'd already suffered a heart attack, I think, when the barbecue took place.
So
I was recovering.
I had actually forgotten about that. And
of course, nowadays we sort of do know the reason for the meeting, and that was the younger ones wanted to do narcotics and things. Well, the older ones wanted to stick with what they thought were victimless crimes like prostitution and gambling.
More traditional business.
Yes, and it was the upstarts who were, and he was to call them in and calm them down.
Yeah, get a few things straight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Straighten things out. It's 10:39. Good morning. You're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bill from Binghamton.
Morning.
Morning, Bob. Jerry, back in the early 1950s, Shenango Street and State Street on the north side was where the original North Side Fire Station stood.
Right.
And there was a split between Shenango and State Street back then.
That's correct.
And that's where the original North Side Fire Station, correct?
Yes, it was a very attractive fire station.
It had a lot of, shall we say, architectural beauty attached to it. It really did. Yep.
Yes. In fact, it had a nice tower. I assume that was a bell tower, but it was a brick fire station, very ornate. There's a wonderful shot of it. I think it's in Artwork of Binghamton in 9 parts. That's the name of it. It's a funny name, which came out in 1909. And there's a wonderful shot of the station then. In fact, that's where that split you're talking about, that's where Robertson Lumber started originally before it moved over to Main Street between Binghamton and Johnson City. So there was a number of stores in that little split between the two streets.
Yes, I remember them well. Yes, very much so. Yep. And back then, there was before they joined the Binghamton Boys and Girls Club, the Binghamton Girls Club was on the north side at one time, too.
Okay, yeah. Yes, you're right, because the Boys Club was more downtown.
Boys Club was downtown. The Girls Club was at the intersection of Frederick Street and Liberty Street.
Okay.
Right on the corner, yep.
All right.
Oh, I was just over there this morning.
Yeah.
Well, Well, there was some kind of a story going on over
and
there.
Frederick Street originally was the drive to Virgil Whitney's house, which that house has been everything from a thing called The Farm, which was a drug rehab place. It
was a big controversy 50 years ago.
Yep.
They moved the drug treatment facility in the middle of the night, and people who lived in the neighborhood
into that building.
Yeah, some people took a dim view, and the mayor at the time, Al Libas, also took a dim view because the people who were running the drug treatment program didn't get permission from City Hall to move it in there.
It's been that house goes back to the 1820s, and then it's been a church. It's been a number of things.
Yeah, I remember when that happened too. Yes.
Yeah.
Some good memories of things back on the north side when it was a real nice neighborhood. So.
Well, now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so now, as people may recall, Jared Cram, our current mayor, has just proposed a replacement for that North Side Fire Station.
Oh, has he?
So, yes.
I did not catch that.
So,
because that station dates back to late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah,
when they reconfigured the streets in that area.
I think it was. I was just going to look it up now. Seems like it was around 1961.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Let me look this up because
at the time when they were closing up the dump, and it was going to be the Binghamton Plaza, and so it's all a lot of early urban renewal.
I hope they build a new incinerator.
There you go.
Because that would be a crowd
that's
pleaser.
That's what we need.
Yeah. Kidding. Somebody's going to take that out of context.
I'm just trying to think of the name of the company, Wheeler. The one that got into a lawsuit.
Foster Wheeler.
Foster Wheeler.
Yeah. Those were good times, man.
Weren't they? We had all their legal documents held at the library for lawyers to look at.
A lot of people were burned up over that.
Ooh, that's a bad pun down.
Very bad. But I got to say, and I mean figuratively, Broome County dodged a bullet in that case. I mean, if Broome County had been saddled with, I can't remember what the cost estimates were, but they were astronomical.
The resulting products that came out of it, yes.
And the dioxins.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
We learned the hard way about that.
Yeah. So anyway, in Mayor Cram's budget message, not that long ago, he said that the planning will get underway for a new fire station on the north side. Location to be determined.
Okay. Not on the same site. Well, we don't know. It could be.
It might not. Well, who knows? Maybe it'll be back on where the previous one.
Yeah.
I mean,
or
we don't know.
Binghamton Plaza.
Yeah. I think it's going to be great.
Yep. Okay. The phones are lighting up.
Well, here we go. More calls, more often. Hi, you're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Will from Shangle Bridge.
Morning.
Morning.
How you doing?
Good.
What year was the Alms building built? The one that was on the BCC campus?
It was around 1870.
Okay.
Now, we think, but we're not absolutely sure, looking at some old maps, that it had an additional wing. If you recall the building, there was it wasn't quite in the center section was the taller part of the building. Then you had a wing that went to the south. We think there might have been a wing that went to the north, but we're not absolutely sure was ever completed. And, of course, then it was used by the Poor Farm operations, eventually turned over to the college. There was art classes held in there, and then, unfortunately, it met its demise a number of years ago.
Right. Okay. All right. I just want to know how far.
Yeah, thank you. And according to a legal notice published in the Press and Sun Bulletin in 2008, that's when it said Broome Community College, SUNY Broome, was looking for people who might have been interested in
for redevelopment,
renovation of the old.
There were a couple people, but there were plans didn't come to fruition, unfortunately, for a number of reasons.
So, as part of that legal notice, it says the Alms building was initially constructed around 1870. It is a brick structure with internal and roof structures of wood. The building was last occupied in 1998, according to that legal notice that appeared in the Present Sun Bulletin in 2008. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
It's Bob from Schnangel Forks.
Hi.
Out in Aquaga, I can't think of the little mountain road, one of those. There's a monument way down on the road for some Indian woman that was either buried there or I think she had something to do with something.
Now, where are we talking about? Down in the town of Windsor?
No, Aquaga. In Aquaga.
Oh, in Aquaga. Okay.
Go across the bridge.
Yes.
Cemetery there. So way down at the end of the road.
You're right. And her name just escapes me. I can tell you what the history is. That name is gone. Molly Brandt. No, not Molly Brandt. It'll come back to me in a minute. She had been kidnapped by some Native Americans. This is prior to the American Revolution. She lived with them for a number of years in Western Massachusetts. She learned to become an interpreter for the colonial forces because she understood their language as well as the English. And eventually she was set free. She married and lived down there and died. And for the life of me, I cannot think of her name. But you're right. The monument is right there. It's off the road a bit, and it's
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Right, I've seen it because my family has a place in Aquaga.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. And I want to say her first name starts with an R, and I'm not.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check it out.
I'm having a senior moment, and I can't pull it up. I want to say like Molly Pitcher, but it's not Molly Pitcher. But it's like. It'll come, 5 minutes after we go off the air, it's going to hit me.
Well, if it does, you can relay the information and call it in or whatever.
But listen to Bob the rest of the day. So.
Yeah, but I know exactly. Okay. But that was her story.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
That would be a good column, maybe. No, I think I've already done that one.
You might have.
I've written 600 and some. I don't remember them all.
And they're all priceless.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just amazed at every column that you do.
We had our grand opening of O Tannenbaum. Here's the self-promotion people on Friday night at the Tioga County Stroke Society Museum at 110 Front Street in Owego, where O Tannenbaum will be open until December 14th, and you have 100 items to bid on, trees, wreaths, and other items. But one gentleman came up to me. He was very kind and said he just so liked my writing. And the pictures as well, because it just made him feel better about his own community. And that's all I can ask for. The greatest compliment, I just told somebody, we were talking about Tom Cawley wrote the article about Joe Barbera, is that his daughter, Kay Payton, who was on our Stroke Society board for a few years, came in one day after I'd started writing the column and said, my dad would really like your work. And I said, that's the highest compliment I could ever get, because most of us grew up reading Tom Cawley. He sort of was this community.
Yeah. And just think of all the columns he did. I mean, for a while there, I think he was doing 4 columns a week.
Yeah.
I think a longer column usually maybe on Sundays.
Yes, but then he did the shorter pieces. Yeah. And if you figure, he goes back to what, the 30s? In just a constant source of telling the tale of the people who lived here.
He did it. We've got more with Jerry Smith coming up, including a shocking development regarding items of history in Endicott's Union districts. It's coming up next. Don't touch that dial. It's 10:52. Jerry Smith is on the air here talking about history. We received a note via Twitter.
Yes.
On Friday from a listener. Okay. Oh, and he even just reminded me. Eric. I had actually taken pictures of what he called to my attention. In the Union District of Endicott, there are a couple of stone posts. One is less than half a block from the cider mill on Nanacoke Avenue. Right. And another is just a couple blocks further south on Exchange Street. So there are these posts, and Eric sent a picture to me on Friday, I believe, and he wanted me to ask you. So, yeah, what's the deal with those posts that still are located on Nanacoke Avenue and Exchange Avenue in the Union District of Endicott?
Those are old hitching posts in the days where everybody had a horse. Either you rode the horse or the horse pulled a buggy or a carriage. And for those there, one of them has a ring in it still where you could actually tie up the horse. I think one just has a hole, whether the ring is missing or you would tie the rope through the hole. In fact, one of them has a stepping block next to it.
Yeah, so the one that's closest to the cider mill still has that block. Yep. And you, because I showed you the picture that I took this morning around 8:30, and you pointed out, I just thought it was, I don't know where.
No, you would pull up with your buggy and you would get out, step on the block. So, I mean, you wouldn't have to have such a large step down. Then onto the ground, you tie up your horse in the ring on the hitching post and visit whoever you're going to go visit. You'll see a lot of those, not a lot, but a number of those in the village of Owego, too.
That's right.
Because the homes, I mean, the street you're talking about, which is the old village of Union, that's the Union District. I mean, that dates way back to the 1830s, 40s, and 50s, as does the village of Owego. And you see a lot of homes of that vintage of the 1850s, 60s, and 70 period with some hitching posts. In fact, there's ones right next to the museum. The house that's next to their museum, there's a hitching post out front.
That's right. What about, so you mentioned the ones in the village of Owego, and we just mentioned two in the Union District of Endicott. Can you think of any others offhand in Broome or Tioga counties?
I've seen one on Shenango Street on the north side. I've forgotten where, but it's up in what would be in the Port Dickinson type area.
I think. For some reason, I remember seeing one. I just can't pinpoint it. Maybe I'll go driving up there this afternoon.
And I'm sure there's several others. I believe in the village of Deposit, there's a couple. I mean, these are the old communities, and people have left the stones. I mean, they're fairly substantial.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And Eric, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
One quick call as we wrap up. Good morning. You're on the air with Jerry Smith. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, good morning there, Jerry. It's Dave from Vestal. And, real quick, I know we don't have much time, but I always read your articles in the paper. And I was reading about the one in Lyle yesterday.
Yes.
And that Mercero family, I was wondering, is there any connection between them and, Mercero Park and that part of Endicott?
Yep, that's all named after is Joshua and John Mercero, the two brothers who were aides de camp to Washington. They're his spies and settled there as well as some moved over to the south side, which now is Vestal. So the Mercero Park, Mercero Avenue, they are all named after that family.
Very nice. Thank you for that question. And next month, maybe we'll talk about the C versus the S spelling of Mercero.
Yes, we can.
Next month, December 9th, baby. Be here.
I will.
Circle that in your radio guide. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Bob.
Calls coming up next hour. Binghamton Now on WNBF. Well, I'm Joseph with the big show on your Monday. We call it Binghamton Now, and we will be taking more calls for those who are inclined to participate. You also can just sit back and enjoy our broadcast between now and noon, 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, online, WNBF.com, and enjoy the real satisfaction of staying connected with Binghamton Now almost anywhere you go with the free WNBF app. Now, more than ever, people love the WNBF app so they can know who is calling Binghamton Now. WNBF app gives you that ability almost anywhere. Almost anywhere. I mean, you're going to be able to get it at the South Pole. Maybe. I don't know. I guess if they have good internet service, which they probably do, they should, because they're doing research there. So probably people are listening at the South Pole. North Pole, Don't know. Hard to say. People can listen anywhere and call us anytime. And we will have some interesting stories coming up this afternoon at WNBF.com. So never let it be said that we don't push out some really interesting stories on our website, because that's what people want. We mentioned about the story with the gas station and convenience store on Main Street, where Binghamton Fluorescent was. So we've got that story. We also did an update on a crash, and it's one of those sad stories when people worked for months and months to open up a business, and then just 2 weeks after they open up their business, a vehicle smashes into the side of their building. And that's what happened in Endicott on Hayes Avenue earlier this month. And so we have an update on what's going to happen with that business. I had a chance to speak with one of the owners, and he was in the building when the crash occurred. So it was a scary thing. You don't expect to be sitting in your business and then bammo or whammo. But fortunately, there evidently were no serious injuries in that crash in Endicott. So if you want to see what's going on over there, you can check it out at WNBF.com. Coming up later today on WNBF, the talk just won't stop. Dan Bongino from noon to 3, Sean Hannity from 3 to 6, and Mark Levin from 6 to 9. I'm Bob Joseph. This is Binghamton Now at WNBF. WNBF with the Binghamton Now program. Oh, and the wildfires. Still looking at the coverage of some of the wildfires here in the Northeast. Normally, wildfires don't occur in the Northeast, but with all the dry conditions, we're probably going to see more wildfires. And sadly, 18-year-old Daryl Vasquez, who apparently was a volunteer forest ranger, was killed by a falling tree in one of the fires on the New York-New Jersey border. So just a tragic turn of events. It's 11:16. Good morning, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
It's Beverly from the town of Dickinson. How you doing, Bob?
I am well. How are you, Beverly?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. I was out walking in the yard with my walker. I'm getting better. But I use my cane a couple of times in the yard, but it don't work. So I've been using my walker more. I just wanna say to our veterans, I thank you for your service, and God bless you and your family.
Well, that's a great message, and I think we all echo that message on this Veterans Day.
Yeah, but I'm doing a little better. They want me to go back to physical therapy again, but you know, by the time I get ready and get in the cab or get on the bus there, why I'm pooped out. Just doing that little bit.
Yeah, well, you have to pace yourself.
Yep.
So, all right, well, hang in there.
Okay.
And keep listening.
Thank you, Bob, and have a good day.
You too. 11:17 at WNBF and WNBF.com. There is some really good news, because I know in this day and age, sometimes people are worried because good news seems to be in short supply. But we are pleased to report that President Biden has invited Donald Trump to the White House. So this is some really good news. And usually this happens all the time, but it doesn't happen every time. Remember, 4 years ago, Joe Biden didn't even get invited to the White House after he won. But this is, times have changed, and there are new policies in place now at the White House. So Donald Trump will be back at the White House. They say it will happen on Wednesday. So if you want to see Donald Trump at the White House, make sure you're paying attention to all the news on Wednesday, because Donald Trump returns triumphantly to the White House to chat with Joe Biden. I know you're saying, well, that didn't happen 4 years ago. I know. That was weird. That was just weird. No idea why it didn't happen. So we'll see what goes on there Wednesday. But I'm sure the media will be covering that. I hope they have live coverage of the meeting too. I hope it's not one of those closed door meetings. I would really, really love if Fox News would cover the whole meeting, so we, can hear what they say to each other, because I think that would be historic. So it would probably be smart of them to allow TV coverage, at least Fox News or maybe Twitter, so we could hear what should be a historic meeting coming up on Wednesday at the White House. Hi, WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Selena from Binghamton.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, sorry, I swallowed wrong. My heart goes out to all veterans, and I appreciate their service, and I love your show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad people are calling in, showing their appreciation.
My dad was in the Army decades ago.
My dad was in the Army, too.
Yeah, my dad, he was in Alaska, serving as MP and all that.
My dad was an MP in France.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, Joseph McCuskey Condon was my dad. He served in Alaska during the Korean War.
Yeah. No, it's I never served, but I appreciate all who have and all who are right now.
Yeah, I love all veterans, and they're so unappreciated. You know how that works.
I know.
But I love them all, and I thank them for their service, and I thank you for this program.
Thank you so much. Hope you have a great day. 11:21, the show that expresses appreciation for those who have served America, those who have in the past and those who are currently serving, to preserve our freedom and democracy. 607-772-1290. This is your program. If you have thoughts about things that are going on today, or maybe thoughts about things that are going to be happening over the next 4 years, you can call in. Express yourself. Now is the time for all good listeners to speak out on Binghamton Now. 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, streaming at WNBF.com. It's 11:25, and let's see. Just hoping that they would have a news conference. Thought they might have a news conference about the fires, but haven't heard anything yet about an update about the fires, especially that one along the New York-New Jersey border. Do have a flash just in from Jerry Smith. This is about the marker or monument in Aquaga. This came up on our program last hour with historian Jerry Smith. A listener brought this up, and on live radio, Jerry Smith was not able to instantly identify the marker, who it was honoring, and he just let me know. He said it was for Rebecca Kellogg. So Rebecca Kellogg. So there. Thank you, Jerry. And, oh yeah, John from Binghamton, actually. I hadn't been paying attention to our emails when Jerry was on because we had a high volume of callers calling in today. So I really overlooked our email, but John from Binghamton actually pointed out that Joe Barbera is in fact buried at Calvary Cemetery. So thank you for calling that to our attention, which it did, as it turns out, it did come up during the hour as we took phone calls. It's just such a wealth of history when you take some time, whether it's only a half an hour or longer, if you take time to explore some of the cemeteries around here. See what you can. Familiar names. Lots of familiar names, and all part of the history. The history of our region. Oh, here's a note regarding the Endicott Veterans Day parade. So this has been sent to us. Well, I don't see a name. But according to the Endicott Facebook page and also UE High School band schedule, the time for Endicott's parade is going to be at 7 p.m. So, and apparently we have had the wrong time. Apparently we've been saying that it's 6 p.m., but according to an email from someone who saw the Endicott Facebook page and the band schedule, the UE band schedule, apparently the parade will be at 7 tonight. This person writes, I hope people will show up at 7. So there you go. 11:28. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, good morning. This is Jim from Endwell.
Hey, Jim.
I got a couple questions. They were doing that museum behind the library in Endicott. Is that opened yet?
No. I was over there at the library a little over a week ago. I think it was on the Friday when early voting was going on, or it was that week when early voting was taking place over at the George F. Johnson Memorial Library on Park Avenue. And I did go on that side, on the back side of the library, and I don't believe that I believe it's the former carriage house behind the library. I don't believe that's open to the public, so I'm not sure if it's right now being used for storage, but I don't believe that there are any public activities going on there.
Just a woman, I can't remember if her name is Susan, or I think it's Susan.
Suzanne Meredith?
Yeah.
Sue Meredith. Yeah.
I donated my father's World War II Eisenhower jacket and a picture of him and a little write-up and stuff. I was just wondering if it was open yet so I could go check it out. She was going to stick it in that library or museum.
Right. Well, yeah, I'll have to check with her and a few other people in Endicott to see what the status is. At least the last I knew, that wasn't open to the public, but I I just drove by and didn't take a close look to see if there was any. My recollection was there didn't seem to be any signage indicating that anybody is routinely allowed to visit there, but
Okay.
I'll look into it at some point.
I was wondering, Jerry Smith's book, The Valley of Opportunity, where can you get that, like at Barnes & Noble, or do you have to get it through him or a website, or do you know?
I believe for most of Jerry Smith's books that if they're still available, if quantities are still available, that you might be able to get them at the History Center, at the library, on the second floor of the Broome County Public Library on Court Street.
Okay. Reason I asked
and if you can't get them there, somebody at the History Center could at least probably tell you how you might get a copy of that book.
Reason I ask is it's kind of a interesting story. Years and years, whenever it came out, I guess, my brother had purchased it and gave it to my parents. My mom was a war bride. She came over. My dad was in World War II. He met her in England. And a year later, she came to a town that she couldn't find on a map. And when she got here, nobody spoke English. Everybody spoke Italian and Russian and Slovak. But she became a citizen. And so my brother got her this book. And we're looking through it, and like right in the middle, like the centerfold of the book, there's a picture of all these people being sworn in as citizens. And right in the front row, dead center, is my mother pregnant with my brother.
Oh, really?
And we had no clue. So I'd like to get a copy of it because I don't know what happened to my parents' copy. They're both gone now. So anyway, I'd love to get a copy of it.
Right,
Maybe even Jerry could sign it. Maybe even Jerry could sign it for me.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'd be glad to if there are any copies still available. Well, check out at the library there on the second floor, and if they have it, I'm sure you can buy a copy. If they don't have it, they might point you in the right direction. Yeah, and if Jerry Smith will be back here on December 9th, so he'll be back in about 4 weeks from today. So if you haven't been able to track it down by then, give him a call, and who knows, he may have a copy stashed aside that you could acquire.
Yeah, okay.
All right?
All right, sounds good. Yeah. And,
Thanks.
And as I go, I'd like to thank all the veterans.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate the messages that we have received from so many listeners this morning expressing appreciation.
And I'm kind of disappointed. I live in Endwell, nice street. There's 3 houses on my street that always have their flags out. And on Veterans Day today, there's only one other flag out, which, I mean, everybody should have their flag out today. Without these guys, we wouldn't be able to be talking right now on the radio, probably. Who knows?
No, that's true. That's true. They've certainly helped protect our freedoms. Appreciate your call.
Yep, bye.
1134 WNBF. The voice of freedom. Yeah, you can exercise if you have a desire to speak freely, speak freely. Some restrictions, of course, apply. Some people, well, how come there are restrictions? It's like everybody listening to this program, everybody over the age of 10 certainly understands why on a radio station you can't literally say anything you want. Well, I want to say whatever I want. Well, if you want to say whatever you want, well, buy yourself a radio station. You could, I'll tell you what, if you're interested in buying radio stations, you can. Go ahead, buy a station. Say whatever you think you can. Just remember, you ultimately have to explain things. You do have to explain things to the FCC if you don't run the station correctly. So But go ahead, knock yourself out. Buy some stations and say whatever you want and see what happens. It's 11:35. Good morning, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Bob. This is Darlene from Binghamton. How
Hi.
are you?
I am well. How are you today?
Good. I'm calling to remind everybody that we are having the parade in Binghamton. I'm not sure if you've already mentioned it, and you may have, but it's going to be held at 1 o'clock today on Main Street, and it's going to start at the American Legion Post 80 and proceed down to the courthouse. And our own county clerk, Joe Mahalko, will be the MC. There will be a viewing stand near the courthouse.
Thank you for the reminder. We had not mentioned the Binghamton Parade, so thank you for the reminder. And, that will be a special event. Looks like a pretty nice Veterans Day for a parade. We have no precipitation. It's not really that cool. It's kind of perfect November 11th for the parade.
Right. Normally we have to battle a little conditions. We also are going to be featuring World War II Iwo Jima survivor, Marine Al Root. He will be at the front and center of all the veterans leading that contingent.
All right. Well, thank you for calling in. By the way, you had a big event there a little bit before the election. It looked like I didn't get to the event. Wasn't it the Friday before Election Day at on Main? Yeah, at Main and Walnut Street. That was a big event.
Oh, okay. I'm not affiliated with that particular post.
Oh, okay.
But,
I thought you
I'm
were.
Sure it was wonderful.
Okay.
No.
Sorry, I got
That's
confused.
okay. We that's all right. We coordinate with them, and they're very kind hosts to us. And I know they are going to be having some events today, so the public is welcome to patronize them. You just need to sign in. They will be having. I spoke to somebody there. They're going to be having chili. They're going to have entertainment. I believe they are already open at 11.
Oh, okay.
And they're going to continue. So anybody's welcome.
Maybe I'll pop over sometime this afternoon. Appreciate your call.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks. 11:38 at WNBF, WNBF.com. And if you have news tips, I have an email address. You know what they say, if you see something, say something. So if you see something going on, just send an email, bob@WNBF.com, and I'll look into it. I appreciate people already have sent a couple of emails about things that are going on around here. So I know what I'll be doing. In about 30 minutes. I'm going to check out a couple of things. So we'll have a few interesting stories that will be popping up on our website this afternoon. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, hello again, Bob. Dave from Vestal. I have a quick question for you. And it would be your opinion, obviously, but what do you think this area is most noted for? That Ma Media in Appalachian or IBM? Which
IBM.
One? To me, it's a tough choice.
No, yeah, IBM. I mean, the Appalachian meeting that happened in November 1957 is notable. I mean, for some history buffs, for some true crime buffs, and people who have watched some movies or TV shows. I don't know. Would be interesting to just take a sample, random sampling, just call people around the United States and ask them, do you know anything at all about upstate New York or the Binghamton area? You know, the part of New York State that's sort of halfway between Syracuse and Scranton, to see what, if anything, people think of. Do they think of the Appalachian meeting in 1957? Do they think about the birthplace of IBM? Do they think about Rod Serling? What, if anything, or do they just draw a blank and say, I have no idea? Why? Yeah. And how'd you get my number? That'd be like, well, I was just asking. Dave from Vestal wanted me to take a survey, so I'm calling 1,000 people at random. And they'd be like, well, don't you ever call me again, you punk.
just curious what you thought.
Yeah, no, that's, well, we could throw that out there. May not get too much of a response today, but maybe throughout the week, if people want to weigh in what they think is potentially more noteworthy for people outside the Binghamton area. So-called birthplace of IBM, the Appalachian meeting with the legendary Joe Barbera, Rod Serling, Carousel Capital. I don't know. Or perhaps the right answer is the home of WNBF radio for nearly a century.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks. Yeah, home of WNBF. Well, what does WNBF stand for? Where news breaks first. WNBF. No, you're saying, come on. Come on. Get real. Mentioned today is fairly nice for the parades that are being held, whether they're during the day or this evening. Compared to a lot of November 11th parades, this is decent. Our forecast today says cloudy, high 59. It's pretty nice. I think that's about 10 degrees warmer than normal. I think that's what the guy on Action News said this morning. But he wasn't on the weather deck, so I don't know. Just wish he would use the weather deck. You go to all that trouble, and how often do they even use it? I should check with them, see if I could just do the show from their weather deck, since I don't think they use it at all between 9 and noon, so we could do this program from the weather deck. Obviously I can't do it. It'll be funny. I set up our microphone and our telephone on their weather deck without getting permission. It'd be like, Bob, you're coming with us. You didn't get permission. All you had to do was ask, and we would have let you run your radio show from the weather deck, because as long as you get your stuff out of there by 11:57, so we can use it for the noon edition. So I think it'd be a clever promo, but obviously I would not do it unless I get permission. So let's see. The rest of the forecast, you say. Today cloudy, 59. Tonight mostly cloudy with a chance of showers, low 38. Tomorrow, cloudy to start with a chance of rain and snow showers, and then it will gradually clear tomorrow afternoon with a high of 45, and then Wednesday, sunny, high 48 right now. In downtown Binghamton, it is 56, 13 Celsius here at News Radio, WNBF. So people still, and this won't surprise anyone, people still are really, really outraged about Peanut. And I get it. The anger is palpable. But the truth, too, is that there is a lot more to the Peanut Squirrel story than most organizations have reported. As they say, there's a lot more. Remember Paul Harvey used to have a feature called The Rest of the Story? Well, that's what is needed here for the whole sorry saga of Peanut the Squirrel. Now, as far as I know, no one is happy that Peanut the Squirrel has died. Kathy Hochul, Dan Bongino, nobody is happy about it. It's happened, and there's nothing at this point that can be done. So listen to this. Everybody thinks they know what happened on that fateful day in October. But we don't know exactly what happened, mainly because most of the information we've received is from Mark Longo. So he tells a story, and there's certainly some indications that the story that Mark Longo has been telling may be filled with exaggerations and even some misinformation. Now, Mark Longo has his perspective, and I feel badly for him about what happened to Peanut the squirrel and to Fred the raccoon. It's unfortunate. It's terrible. But here's a little bit more that maybe you haven't heard. The union that represents the environmental conservation officers wants people to effectively take a chill pill and try to wait for more information, because apparently a lot of what has been on social media has been wrong, and some environmental conservation officers and DEC staffers have been threatened. According to the union that represents the DEC officers, there have been threats to blow up DEC offices and employees' homes, even targeting a judge. So this news release from the union says the public has been greatly misled by some of the stuff on social media, painting a partial picture of the investigation that triggered the violent threats. Union put out a news release. It says, our officers understand and accept that they risk their lives every time they begin a shift, but they should never fear for their safety or that of their family for doing the jobs that they need to do. So union says, we ask the public to keep in mind these people are their friends, family, and neighbors, and they don't deserve to live in fear for upholding the law, which is true. Now, part of the problem is New York State government. New York State government policy of operating in virtual secrecy for most things, that's part of the problem. So Mark Longo gets to tell his story, and so we hear his side, his perspective. But Kathy Hochul, as far as I know, hasn't put out information, or I haven't seen the governor and the interim DEC commissioner putting out information, answering questions. So, the threats aren't right, but the state's lack of transparency and just making it seem like, whatever, this is just like any other story. We'll release little bits and pieces of information. So, well, it didn't work this time. This is Exhibit A by the state's policy of releasing very limited information about everything. It doesn't work. So maybe they should take a look at how this happened and figure out a new way of treating the media. When the media are seeking information, provide it quickly. Answer questions. If they had responded quickly, maybe some of the threats wouldn't have happened. If they provided accurate information. Apparently, so far as I can tell, nobody has video of what happened. Mark Longo doesn't have video. The DEC, nobody has video. In this day and age, October 2024, nobody got video of what happened. Seems hard to believe. Yeah. Where are the tapes? There must be audio and video tapes. Show us what happened. Why the radio silence? So the union says this: while the investigation's ongoing and certain facts cannot yet be disclosed, we can provide some information. So there you go. Certain facts cannot yet be disclosed. Why? Peanut and Fred are dead. as far as we know. The investigation was initiated in January when several licensed wildlife rehabilitators filed complaints with the agency that Mark Longo was operating an illegal wildlife sanctuary. Following up on the complaints, an officer contacted him, informing him that keeping a squirrel is illegal unless he was a licensed wildlife rehabilitator with the intent of preparing the animal to re-enter nature. Longo told investigators the squirrel had been released to the wild. After the warning was issued, complaints continued to be received by the DEC, so an investigation was started. And an investigator reviewed Longo's social media accounts, which showed that he had lied to the investigator and, in fact, had not released Peanut into the wild. In addition to keeping the squirrel in violation of the law, he also had taken in a raccoon, which appeared in social media postings as well. It says here, the Longo social media posts were the basis for the search warrant that was issued by the judge. News reports that portrayed the seizures being carried out by 10 or 12 agents of the state, making it sound as if it were a tactical raid. This union statement says, in fact, there were 3 uniformed officers who were responsible to secure an 80-acre compound. Several plainclothes investigators who carried out the search pursuant to the warrant, and 3 DEC wildlife employees who were not police officers. After locating the squirrel, it bit a civilian wildlife biologist through 2 pairs of protective gloves. Due to the injury, the Chemung County Health Department was contacted, and the squirrel and raccoon were turned over alive to the health department. The union says the health department made the determination to kill the animals, humanely euthanize both, as it is the only way to test for rabies, as rabies testing requires a sample of brain matter. While squirrels don't typically carry rabies, the cohabitation with the raccoon, a species known to be a vector for rabies, opened the possibility of animal-to-animal transmission, which placed the wildlife biologist in potential danger. This was unfortunate, but the decision was not made by the DEC. It wasn't made by the officers, the investigators, or the agency's wildlife biologists participating in the service of the warrant. It was a decision made by the health department. So why does this information have to come from the union that represents DEC officers who are now being threatened? So it's sad that threats are being made. It really is. Having said that, it's not surprising because people got whipped into a frenzy. I mean, you see the video and the pictures of Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon. Of course, it's heartbreaking that they were killed. But now there's more information. And the state certainly had a lot of this information early on, but I didn't see the DEC or the governor put out a news release. I didn't see it. So that's how misinformation can happen about anything. So next time people get upset with the news media and say, well, why aren't you telling the whole story about anything? Hey, we can't. I'm a reporter. I can't compel anyone to answer my questions. I can ask questions, but nobody's compelled. I can't say, you answer my questions or you're going to be subject to arrest. No, answer my questions if you want, or don't. With the state, in this case, really could, I think, have handled this better to let people know at least their side of the story. And let's face it, you probably do understand state employees or other government employees are restricted from speaking with reporters. So if a DEC officer, someone who actually was there, or a wildlife biologist, or anyone else who worked for the state or even worked for Chemung County or any other government agency, if they actually had the courage to talk to reporters about what happened, there's a good chance they'd get fired, because that's how things work. You know, you can talk about freedom of speech, but if you work for someone, whether it's the government or a private entity, you don't have freedom of speech. Try it sometime and see if you have a job. Now, freedom of speech applies that the government can't restrict speech, but the government can restrict the speech of its employees, and private businesses can and do restrict the speech of their employees. That's the way it is. So, well, eventually we'll find out more about what happened in this case involving the squirrel and the raccoon. But, and some of what you're going to find out you won't like, but that's the way it is. It just takes time. That's our program for today. I'm Bob Joseph. Enjoy your afternoon. Stay tuned to WNBF.